Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't hit the red subscribe button at the bottom, please do so now. And let's get on with the story. The story is called Please Stay Away from Wayne Natural Forest. Not many people take me seriously. I get it. Someone with a traumatic past like mine must be nuts, right? But I know what I've seen. I know it all too well. You see, I'm a Bigfoot hunter, but I'm not really calling it that. First, there are more than one of them, but the name implies to only one exists. And two, I really hate the name. Bigfoot sounds like a wacky name from a monster in a kid's cartoon, and that's how a lot of people think of them. Cheesy made-up TV monsters. But they're not. They are horrifying and very dangerous, I should know. Anyway, I always prefer the term Sasquatch. My obsession with Sasquatches began at a young age. I loved hiking, and my grandpa would always tell me stories of Sasquatches roaming around in the woods. The first book I checked out with my library card was about the Titanic of the world, with a Sasquatch on the cover. Unfortunately, my childlike wonders would soon be replaced by absolute fear of the woodlands beast. My dad took me hiking a lot. Sometimes my mom and little sister would come too, but normally it's just the two of us. I always enjoyed those hike trips until one day we had an encounter with a Sasquatch that would change my life. Wayne Natural Forest is near where I grew up, and my father would often take me hiking there. When I was 10 years old, we took our last hike together, and all started out fine. The sun was shining, the temperature was usually warm for a while in November. We journeyed into the woods without care in the world. But we saw something that quickly spoiled our carefree mood. Behind some trees was an extremely tall hairy beast standing on two legs. Its fur was black, and it must have been at least 7 feet tall. My heart began to beat louder and louder. As it heard my heart beating, the thing turned its head and revealed bright red eyes with sharp teeth. I began backing away on my wobbly legs. I looked to my dad for some sort of help or reassurance, but when I looked at him, a blur came over the trees with a loud roar, and my father was on the ground with a giant beast on top of him. My father was screaming and yelling for help and telling me to run. Before I sprinted away, I managed to catch a glimpse of the hideous beast, bearing its claws and its hands and using them to rip apart the flesh of my father's face. I ran as fast as I could with my father's cries of agony in the backdrop. I now back to the uniform center by the parking lot and ran inside. I was sweaty, dirty, and with hysterical. I told them my dad was got attacked by something. When they asked me what it was, I realized at last what the thing was. It was Bigfoot, I said in a sobbing whisper. Everything after it was a blur. They called my mom and came to get me, and the police got a paramedic search the forest. They didn't find a trace of my dad. After a week of searching was suspended. To this day, I can still find my father on the list of missing people. Everyone tries to ask me what happened. I told them, but they wouldn't believe me. They said I must have been a bear or imagined something. I knew it wasn't a bear. It was standing and walking on two legs. And how could something I imagined kill my father? Needless to say, I went to a lot of therapy over the next few years. The psychiatrists and therapists were reasonable with me in telling me that there was no Sasquatch. I imagined it all. I never believed them, but eventually I played along and agreed with them. However, the nightmares continued for years after the attack. I still have nightmares about the day sometimes, but I don't feel as helpless as I did as a child. I decided I would make people believe that Sasquatches are real and they are dangerous. I conquered my fear of the woods and began searching for signs of Sasquatches, always with my camera around my neck, to document anything I found. The only evidence I found was an odd Sasquatches in trees, dug footprints, and occasionally a strange howling or growling coming from deep into the woods. I even started a Sasquatch club at my high school. I got bullied a lot for it, and everyone in the club took it seriously. But I was happy that at least some people believed me and helped me. But one day I realized that What I was doing wasn't enough. Just going out looking for evidence on the weekend, hiking in Sutherland, I decided to become a survival expert. I went to the college and I studied the forestry and geology. After that, I joined the army for 5 years, learning as much as I could about survival, hunting, and outdoorsmanship. But the time I was discharged, I was ready to put my plan into motion. I built a small cabin in the secure area near where my father was killed. I kept a lot of guns, knives, and crossbows with me. Later, I even hooked up my house with night vision cameras with motion detection. This way, the base of operations, so to speak. From this location, I would scout the forest and try to capture or kill a Sasquatch. I did capture some video of a mysterious movement by my house one night with a motion activated camera, but nothing definitely. Most of every day, I would come to the forest searching for evidence. Sometimes went on what I like to call a field expedition too. On the field expedition, I take tents and some providing and go 5 days hike to cover my distance. My last field expedition would be my most horrifying. I set off from my cabin at dawn, and I usually carry with me a tent, sleeping bag, shotgun, ammo, and a few knives, some food and water, and tons of basic wilderness survival material. After my first day out was pretty typical. No evidence, no sightings, nothing. But things began to get weird one first night. I was about to turn in for the night in my tent when I began hearing low bellows from within the forest and humans screaming. I leapt out of my tent with my shotgun fully loaded and my night vision goggles on. I searched the area around my tent for 2 hours but couldn't find anything. Before I went to bed, I set up a camera nearby and put down a trap. I woke up, but nothing was in the trap. There seemed to be nothing of noted on the footage that my camera recorded. A second day out, completely normal expected for one thing. In the afternoon, I was walking along when I thought I saw my dad walking through the trees. I ran over to where I saw him, but there was no one there. I looked in the surrounding area, but there was just a squirrel, not my dad. I shook my head and moved on after that. On the third day, I was once again preparing for bed when I saw a shadow coming from outside my tent. There was a low growl. I grabbed my dagger and lantern and secretly approached the exit of the tent. Then I rushed outside but found nothing there. I stayed on high alert for hours, gripping my shotgun, waiting for Sasquatch to show itself, but it never happened. I got a late start on my fourth day because of how long I stayed up the previous night. I checked my cameras, I set up on camp, and I saw it. A shadow with glowing eyes was coming from behind the trees shortly after I set up the cameras, but there was that camera caught never came out in the open. When I rushed out of the tent, the eyes were gone. Once again at night, this time a few hours into slumber, I heard a faint growl. I opened my eyes and saw what looked like 2 figures outside my tent, but I barely was able to keep my eyes open and fell asleep again almost immediately. I cursed myself for this when I woke up, but I thought it could have been a dream or a tired mind playing tricks on me. I would soon find out I was wrong. It was going to check the cameras to be sure, but I needed to take up number 1 first. But before I could even begin, I heard an awful loud growl. I ran into the trees I was behind and saw them. In front of me were 3 Sasquatches staring at me, but their eyes, red eyes, almost seemed like dreadful shapes of teeth, distorted into a grin. I took my pocket knife out to threaten them. Then one of them did something I didn't expect. One of them took my camera from its perch on the tree and smashed it. I gasped, I yelled, and bolted towards the beast, but they were too quick for me. Before my knife could pierce their flesh, they were gone again in the dark blur. I saw them running into the woods and I chased them, but eventually I lost them and I couldn't find them again. I couldn't believe they destroyed my camera. Did I finally collect enough evidence, but they wanted it destroyed? If that was the case, I shrugged, thinking about how much I may have underestimated the Sasquatch's intelligence. I was supposed to be my last day today, but I decided I'm not finished this expedition yet until I get one of those Sasquatches killed and show it off to everyone so they know the truth. And I will kill Sasquatch or die trying. Wow, that was a scary story. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and subscribe to my second channel and join my Discord and follow me on Twitter if you have a Twitter account to be updated on my videos.